Welcome everyone to section 2 of this course. We're going to dive into the features, functions, and purpose of Power Query. Now, as a quick recap, in our last section, our focus was on the report requirements and data import, where we used our requirements to connect to and import data from our Contoso dataset into the data model of our Power BI file. In this section, I want us to explore the ways which we can easily shape and/or clean our data as needed. However, before we get started, let's talk a bit about how Power Query works. As I've already mentioned in previous videos, Power Query can extract data from nearly any data source. We've just successfully imported a series of tables from an Excel data source, but that could have been any number of other sources. Power Query can also apply any number of transformations as needed to the data that you're extracting. I've yet to encounter dirty data that was beyond the repair or transformation ability of Power Query. It's that amazing. A final transform table is what is then created as the last step in Power Query. That final table is then loaded into the data model. For those of you familiar with SQL, you'll probably recognize that the words stand for ETL, or extract, transform, and load. Fundamentally, it's not much different than the other more complex and expensive data cleaning tools, but unlike those tools, Power Query is significantly easier to learn and much cheaper. You see, the fundamental goal of Power Query is to act as a Rosetta Stone, or universal translator for our thoughts, and more specifically, our business logic. Any shaping, transforming, cleaning, or filtering we'd want to apply to our data can be applied easily and quickly using the editor we'll use in the demo portion of this video. Even better is that our business logic gets translated into a series of applied steps that then run sequentially whenever the data is refreshed in Power BI. Now, for anyone who's ever written VBA in Excel before, this is like the ultimate macro recorder. And for anyone who's ever used Access for data cleaning, you'll never need to touch that again after using this. Are you ready for one more awesome feature? You can become a Power Query expert without ever having to touch a line of code. Almost everything you'll need to do in Power Query can be done with mouse clicks. Think of this like Apple's App Store, but instead of the slogan, there's an app for that. The slogan for Power Query is, there's a button for that. For this video, we'll start with the basics and cover 3 transformations you'll apply on almost any table. Those will be choosing the columns you need for your report and getting rid of the data you don't need, renaming your columns to user or report-friendly names, and changing the column data types so they can be calculated correctly in the data model. Alright, you'll see in front of us the Learn Power BI report that we've been using in previous videos. If you take a look on the right, you will see that there are the 7 tables that we have imported into this data model. Now what I'm going to do is open up the query editor and you will see that each of these 7 tables has 7 queries that we can edit or transform as needed. So I'm going to navigate up to the upper left hand corner of my Power BI report and click on this button that says Edit Queries. So what we have in front of us is the Power Query Editor window. If you draw your eyes to the left, you'll notice, similar to our data model, under the Other Queries section, we have 7 queries associated with our 7 tables in our data model. Now for this exercise, for the choosing columns, renaming columns, and changing type, I am going to focus on these 6 lookup tables, and very specifically, I'm going to apply the practices to the dim product table as an example, and then rinse and repeat it on the rest of the tables to conclude this video. So for now, we don't have to worry about the fact sales table, and we can also go ahead and minimize the little folder above here because we will discuss that in the following video. So to start with, let's go ahead and select our products table. We can see a preview loading of this table in front of us right now. This is a preview of what the table will look like transformed as it gets loaded into our data model. So drawing our eyes over to the right side, the most important part, honestly, of the query editor is the query settings over here, and more specifically, a section underneath it called Applied Steps. You'll notice that there are already 3 connections in there. There is a source, navigation, and change type. And that's what pretty much any connection will do anytime you bring a table in from a source. What is the source of my connection in this case? That is the file location of the Excel file that contains all of my tables. And from there, after it knows the source of my data, what table do I want? And then anytime you connect to a flat file, it automatically adds a change type in there. Now, I will say that one common mistake that is often made by self-taught Power Query users is they end up with a bunch of rename steps, a bunch of change type steps. So we want to have the change type at the very end as a good practice to do. And these are very easily edited, removed. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete this. There we are. And now it's simply just picked my data source and navigated. So what I'm going to do in here now is I want to have this, and I want to go through here and figure out which columns that I want to bring into my data model. And as that my first action, or my first applied step, I want to choose a column. Or choose the columns, I should say. So let's scroll through this table a little bit and see if there might be any data in here that we don't want. I see some empty data in a few rows, and that might be okay. Size still contains some data on certain rows, but looking at size range, it kind of looks fairly empty. And even better said, there's not really any data in here at all. So this is a column that we don't really need. Now, on a lot of these examples of the actions that we can take, I'm going to discuss multiple ways to do it. So one way you could do this is you could right-click and select remove. But what that's going to do is that will say to the action, delete this specific column. But what about if on your next refresh, another column or a third or a fourth comes in, other columns that you don't want to keep anymore? So a better action for this is to go up to this button at the top. And as I mentioned, Power Query is pretty much all mouse clicks and buttons. There's a button up here called Choose Columns. And if I select that, it gives me an option of which columns would I like to keep. So I want to keep everything in here except for size range. That is a column that I do not want in the final load. So if I uncheck that and I click OK, and very importantly, let me move this over here, take a look at what happens to my applied steps over here as soon as I hit OK. It added a new step. So now I have chosen the columns that I want to be in my final table load, and that's the only columns that will ever get loaded until I come back in here at any point, hit that gear icon, then I can change my selection so I can easily edit or update this as needed, but I've now locked in my choice to the selection you see in front of you. So it prevents other columns from coming in unexpectedly until I, as the editor or developer, choose to add them in. Beautiful. So that's step one that we've done. And we have the removed columns in here. Now the next step is to go ahead and clean up some of these column names, because these are not particularly user-friendly. There's no spaces. The title itself is pretty bad too. So I'm going to go through each one of these and product key, rename them just by double-clicking. And that first one I renamed by double-clicking. The next one you can also right-click, select rename down here at the bottom, product name. Now I'm going to speed through the rest of these for the video, so let's go ahead and rename the rest. Alright, I've gone through and given all the column names a much better name that would look better on a chart or a graph or in a table, something that's a lot more user-friendly. And I want to do the same thing as well to the name of the table. The initials DIM don't really look that good, and those are something that are created in SQL, often from the admins to reference dimension versus lookup tables. But in here, we can simply just call this product or geography or anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And that will finish the step for getting rid of the non-user-friendly names. And as you'll see in the applied steps, that has also been added as a step. And these are running through sequentially. So now we have 4 steps in our list. It goes source first, navigation second, removed other columns third, renamed other columns fourth. And that final step that we want to do on this table is going to be that changed type. Now these little icons at the top of each of these columns, if I click them, it does give me an option of changing the type one column at a time, and it gives me a list of things I could change to. But that's kind of manual. I have to think about what the column data types they should be changed to. A much better solution for this that's quicker is doing selecting anywhere in the table, doing Control A. That selects the entire table, and then finding a button for this, we come up with Transform under the ribbon at the top, and we select Detect Data Type, which, as it says, will automatically detect the data type of the currently selected columns, and that's why I did Control A. I selected all the columns I want to detect data type on. I will select that. You notice that all the icons up here just changed. It added an applied step as well. There's 1.2 for numbers and so on. So we've now cleaned up this table and done the 3 steps that I recommend to do on any table before loading, which is removing other columns, renaming columns, and changing the type. Now I'm going to quickly go through and rinse and repeat this in the rest of the tables. So let me just go ahead and do that. Alright, I've gone through my 6 lookup tables and applied those 3 steps to each one of them. Now to close out this video, I want to mention the fact that remove other columns that locks in the selection that you have and makes sure that new columns don't come in unless you choose to. Even though you use that function, as an example right here, I don't actually have to uncheck any column. Just adding this and selecting all the columns in here still adds this step, still locks in the framework to keep it the choice to just what I have in front of me. That way it prevents any of the columns from coming in accidentally if this table ever changes in the future until I choose to. So it's a great little kind of hidden trick on making sure that your data stays the way you want it with refreshing the new data, but not adding in any unnecessary textual information down the line. Alright, you might have noticed that I have not covered the fact sales yet.